So this video is designed as a general guide to investments for trustees. So I imagine you're here if you've been appointed as a trustee of a trust and have questions to ask and be answered around what to do with that trust and specifically with the investments of that trust. So before we get started, I just want to cover some of the main principles, the key principles of trusts, just so you have them in your mind before we get into the details of how to invest as a trustee. So first thing to think about is what a trust is. So what is a trust? A trust is a legal device that allows you to have ownership of assets outside of an individual or a person. So they can be set up during someone's lifetime or at their death in their will. And they're generally used for a number of reasons. I mean, the main ones are for control over assets, so that you get to decide where that money goes, especially after you've died, potentially to protect assets in complex family situations, that kind of thing, and also to protect the interests of vulnerable people. And the third thing is less useful these days, but to help preserve wealth down the generations and save tax within the trust arrangements. Unfortunately, trusts are taxed at much higher rates than they used to be, so that's less of an issue than it used to be. So just some quick definitions then. So you'll come across these in sort of the general usage of running a trust on a day-to-day basis. So 4 things to cover. The first is the settler. The settler is the person who set up the trust, so the person that put money into the trust either during their lifetime or potentially within their will. So they're the person that set it up, made the decisions around how the trust should be arranged, and set sort of guidance for the people who are going to run it after them. They typically do that with a trust deed. So what a trust deed is designed to do is have the rules to follow for the trust, who should benefit, how they should benefit, and in what circumstances. Without the trust deed, there are various forms of legislation that you need to be aware of too, but the trust deed is your sort of guiding document to give you the rules of the trust. The third thing is the trustees. So I imagine that you, if you're watching this, are a trustee. The trustees are the legal owners of the assets held within the trust, but they're responsible to look after those assets for the beneficiaries of the trust. So trustees are the people that run the trust in accordance with the rules of the trust deed and the wishes of the setter, the person who set up the trust. So you're in a very position of a lot of responsibility over that person's assets, and you have to look after the interests of the beneficiaries. So of course the beneficiaries are the people who are entitled to benefit from the trust. So they are typically receive income and capital distributions from the assets that are placed into the trust. And of course if you're a trustee, you have to look after their interests to make sure they're looked after. Okay, so just finally then let's think about the main types of trust. There's 3 ones that I will cover on a general basis. The first is a bare trust. Bare trust is the most simple form of trust that you'll come across. It's where somebody is absolutely entitled to receive the money should they choose to do so, provided they're over 18. So often these are simple trusts that are set up in wills to provide for, let's say, somebody to receive money when they reach a certain age, or to take the proceeds of a life insurance policy, that kind of thing. We also have life interest trusts or interest in possession trusts, and as they sound, that they kind of have a change in interest in the trust as situations change over time. So typically you would have somebody who receives an income for life, and then somebody else might revert to the capital after that person dies. So you might put a property in trust to allow a surviving spouse to live there for life, and then have the children to inherit that money, for example. And then the final, more complex type of trust is a discretionary trust. And as that sounds, the trustees have a lot of discretion over how and who should benefit from the proceeds and the assets of the trust. So that's it in a nutshell. Quite a lot to cover, but you need to have those things in mind as we go through the rest of this resource and examine your duties, responsibilities, and how to invest as a trustee.